Welcome to Wish Fulfillment Week here on Survivor Analytics. My name's Jack. I'm back after a week off. Shout out to friend of the show, Alexis, for filling in for me. With me, as always, the true expert. Say hi, Clyde, and say nothing more.
What's up, party people?
Moving on. This is a great week. You know why? Because we're cutting the chaff. We're cutting the dead weight. We're focusing on what matters on Survivor. And here's what matters. Physical prowess above all else. That's the name of the game in the new era, Survivor 48. I did have to look at my notes to see what number season it is. It's been a long couple weeks. We're riding and dying with our alliances all the way to the end. We're working out on the island. We're flexing for the camera. Is there any subtlety? Yes, but it comes after we do our sit-ups for the day. It's good to be back. It's good to be on Survivor and meet boys for life. The last thing I'll say before Clyde interrupts me.
I haven't said anything yet. I've only spoken when you asked me to speak up until this point. But yeah, go ahead. I'll let you have your moment.
The last thing I'll say is I have looked up the merged tribe name. Do you know what it means, Clyde?
Yes, it means milk.
Do you know what language it's in?
Is it Mandarin?
It is Mandarin. This is the fourth tribe name in Survivor history to be Chinese, and the rest of them were on Survivor China.
That is funny. Well, the whole reason why the tribe name is that is it came from Mary. Her parents can never watch Survivor because they speak Mandarin, and CBS doesn't offer those subtitles. So Mary convinced the rest of her tribe to roll with that as the name in the hopes that CBS would take the sign, and they never do it. And apparently this was like the third or fourth tribe name that they went through until production gave them the green light.
I did not know that. I did spend quite a bit of time trying to get Fijian to translate the phrase before I saw a Reddit post about how it was not Fijian. That's really cool. I mean, the localization and translation and stuff is really tricky, and that's a cool way to draw attention to it. I'm obviously stoked out of my mind about this episode. We cut out some of my least favorite players. We focused on some of my favorites. How do you feel?
I completely disagree.
Yep.
I'm genuinely worried about the back half of this season. I feel like the first half of Survivor 48 is potentially the best pre-merge of the new era. There's so many electric votes through those first 5-6 episodes. But the negative there is that you lose a lot of the big characters on the cast. And I think this week we lost two of the biggest personalities on the entire season. We spent so much of March talking about Cedric and Say, and now they're both gone. And what do we have left? Like, why is Chrissy still here? Why is everyone still focused on the ideas of honor and integrity?
Hey, Chrissy's on my fantasy team. The only thing I'll push back on there is I wouldn't call Cedric a big personality. He's had a massive impact on the game. I would not call him a big personality.
I do think he's a big personality in his own weird way. I think you can be a big personality without being the loudest person in the room. I think for Cedric, he's someone that pops off screen in just how ridiculous he is with his strategic decision making. Without Cedric, we could have had a very straightforward pre-merge, but because he keeps flip-flopping and changing his mind, we get some of the most absurd tribal councils of the new era. I am very happy that he's the mayor of Ponderosa. I'll have a lot more to say about that down the line.
I think something that we will come back to at the end of this episode that Chrissy points out in her tribal this week gets at the problem you have, which is the mentality that people like Joe have in this season, which I like as an old school fan. You know, things were better when I was 9 and Survivor China came out. There's this mentality of, if you can stick with your alliance to the end, then the best man will win, but you can go through with integrity. And what Chrissy points out, we can discuss this more at the end, is that you can't play the game like that. At some point, you have to make a turn. So I think with that in mind, we can talk about the rest of the episode and about if this alliance based on integrity can actually make it through. Spoiler alert, I think Kyle and Camilla are going to snake their way through it, which is even better. I love it. But
want to start a post-tribal council from last week?
Yeah.
Charity has just been voted out of the game, surprising absolutely nobody.
Except Mitch.
except Mitch.
Yep.
He's
Asterisk.
the one person that did not expect this. He is now on the outside of the tribe. He admits that he had no clue what was going on during the charity boot. And we get to see Mitch put in some work early on. He's trying to reintegrate with the majority. He connects with Joe and Shaheen about his experience changing jobs from a mailman to a PE teacher.
Taking, quote, a massive pay cut, which is A, wild that, I had no idea being a mailman was super lucrative. And B, sucks that being an educator is a pay cut.
With Mitch, the part that really surprises me with him is that the whole idea behind this honor and integrity alliance is that we're going to grab all of the physical beasts and put them together in one group. I think Mitch is one of the better physical competitors on this cast. Like, why was he not included in that alliance to begin with? We had so many episodes in the pre-merge where Mitch would step up for some kind of shooting-based challenge and he would knock them all down back to back to back. Like, Mitch has proven himself. He's proven himself as a meat boy, and he deserves a spot in that alliance, and yet he finds himself on the outside.
I think it's the delineation came when he was still with Charity. David didn't want to work with Charity, right? So I think it's the essence of Charity was still on him and excluded him. What we really have is the leftover California girls, Joe and Eva, and then Kyle and David kind of came in as well, right? And I think David probably had a hand in saying, we don't want him. He's working with Charity.
They're playing the game with more strategy than they're actually letting on. Because if they were just aligning with all of the best physical competitors, Mitch would be in on it. So Mitch is struggling early on, but so is Cedric. Cedric had his name written down in the last tribal council, and he has no clue who did it. We immediately pan to a confessional from Say, where she admits that she voted against Cedric, not for any real strategic purpose. She just wanted to spook him. And she wrote his name in cursive to disguise it, and it completely worked. What did you think about this decision from Say?
I mean, it's pretty funny. It's meaningless, especially after the end of this week. It's meaningless, but that was bothering Cedric the whole time. For all we know, that's been bothering Cedric until this aired. For all we know, that's been a burden for 8 months or whatever it's been.
Well, at least for his time on Fiji, because Say went home with all the other pre-jurors. So Say took a flight back to the States. Cedric was hanging out in Ponderosa, and as every person was voted out of the game and joined him, he still didn't know who wrote his name down.
Did you vote for me? Was that your handwriting?
Please tell me.
It is a very funny move, and, it's one of these moments where we see here in a little bit Say trying to network, right? Trying to make relationships, and she talks to Shaheen, and they come away both with a big sense of respect and are both like, wow, game recognized game. And Shaheen says, if we'd been on the same tribe, I think we would have worked together. I think Say really got screwed by her tribe, obviously, right? I mean, it was such a absolute disaster class, but especially in the category of her personality is so distinct that if she had found someone else who met her on that level, I think she would have gone a lot further. And just the consequences of her direct personality. And we get to enjoy some of her sort of playful moments here, right? But I think that's a big reason she didn't really ever have a chance post-merge.
See, I don't think Say had a chance post-merge, but that was more so due to her own poor social play. Like, Say had an opportunity to connect with a lot of people on this cast. She, didn't get along great with most people on the original Vula tribe outside Cedric, but she reaches the swap. She has a chance to make new inroads there, and she doesn't do it. Like, I give her a lot of credit for building that relationship with Cedric to the point where he was constantly throwing away his game for her. But once you look beyond that one guy, Say didn't form a stable alliance with anybody else this season. So I do think she deserves a good amount of the blame for, like, her shorter run. I will say, Say needs to come back for Survivor 50. I know she didn't reach the merge, and most people on 50 will be post-merge contestants, but she's such a distinct character on this cast and in the new era at large. Like, how many other people can you think of from the new era who will just throw their vote onto someone in a spot where they're the target just to prove a point, just to mess with another contestant? Like, I think Say adds something new to the show that we don't see in this modern era anymore.
I've been down on Say for a long time. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to show up in 50 who I don't know. I don't know their gameplay just because of my inexperience with the franchise. I like her chaotic energy. And I think if I knew that was what she was going to bring in, almost in a way like a less problematic Russell Hantz.
Yeah.
Right? This fake name handwriting move smacks a little bit of burning the socks, right? I always return to burning the socks. I love that move so much.
I think I'm going to make a new rule on the pod that we can't bring up the socks anymore.
No,
because I think it comes up once every, 3-4 episodes?
It comes up every season because it's the greatest move I've ever seen on this show.
Okay.
It still is. But if we had seen Cedric go another 3 weeks trying to figure out who put his name down, set it up, right? If he hadn't been sent home, we could have watched him go insane, right? And it would have been spectacular. I'm down. I agree. I'm fine with it. I got to be honest. I would rather, for a season like 50, I've never seen a returning player season. I'd rather see somebody chaotic than straightforward on a returning player season.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree. You're going to have solid strategists no matter what. You're not always going to have a fun personality like Say. The other thing I want to mention, and you hit on this already a bit, and that's Shaheen. He has that conversation with Say where he says that, I wish we met in the pre-merge because I would have wanted to work with you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really funny because he's hyping up Say since she's this active strategic player. But Shaheen's alliance that he's locked himself into is full of non-strategists. It's full of people that want to remain completely loyal to each other without any risk of flipping. So it's easy to say you want to align with Say, but it's completely different to actually do it. I think that this episode was Shaheen's breakout for the season. Up until this week, I thought he was a contender to win the whole thing. Now, in my most recent ranking, he's at number 1. I feel like Shaheen checks all of the boxes that I want to see from a winner in this one episode. We see his social game on display. During the challenge, he's cracking jokes and singing a lot of the tribal chants. We see his strategic play. In the opening of the episode, he clearly outlines that Say, Mitch, and Cedric are all on the bottom. He has a good pulse on the game. And he's someone with win equity. People like Kyle and Camilla and Chrissy all identify Shaheen as a potential target this week because they think he could win a jury vote. I think it's common in the new era for you to have these future winners face some bumps in the early game where people perceive them as threats. I think of Kenzie in 46. Right before the merge, there's a confessional from Banu where he says, Kenzie's the mermaid dragon. She could win the whole thing. You need to get her out. She's a major risk if you let her get deep in the game. And she went on to win the whole thing. And I think that could be Shaheen's equivalent for this episode.
It's quite a claim for my loser this week. But
man, you don't think he has any potential long term?
I think he's too big of a threat. I think too many people see him as a threat. Because I do. I think he's a very, very strong player. I think he's just too seen. I think there are a lot of people on this tribe who will say, oh, David's got immunity. We'll take out Shaheen. Oh, Joe's got immunity. Ava's got an idol. We'll take out Shaheen. I think there's too many situations where his name floats up. And I think the Kyle Camilla move this week was really, really good, even though they didn't capitalize on it. But we'll get to that.
See, I feel like if Shaheen goes out this season, it needs to be in the next round or two because he has insulated himself very well with these stagnant strategic players. He's got Star, Joe, Eva, and David who all want to work with him. Now, David hears the story about the fake idol and maybe he'll buy into that down the line, but that's 5 out of 10 people, including Shaheen, that are in that tight alliance. Like if Camilla and Kyle don't take the shot next week or the week after, I feel very confident about him making a deep run. We'll talk more about that vote later on. The only other thing I want to throw out before the challenge is those players on the bottom. Shaheen outlines it. You got Say, you got Mitch, you got Cedric. Say makes sense. She was the backup vote in the last tribal. Mitch also makes sense. He just lost his number 1 ally in Charity. But why is Cedric here? Why is Cedric a bottom feeder? I thought he had allies in the game. I thought he connected with the Siva players at the swap. Like, why is Cedric perceived as lowly as those other two?
I think it's Say, honestly, and Mary's perspective on Cedric and Say. He's perceived as being close to Say, or having been close to Say, and Say's radioactive. Shaheen goes, oh, I would have liked to work with you, but isn't going to work with her, right? He could.
Yeah.
But she is so clearly on the bottom that she is irretrievable. I think in that context, he is just irradiated with the sayness.
That's what Mitch experienced too.
I think both Cedric and Mitch have this with both of these dynamics. It's shown in the edit. I still don't get why Charity was so disliked. Cedric, no idea where any of his social time is going, any of his relationship building. There was that one conversation he had with Mitch, right, where they related about their stutter, which was really nice. That's it. And there's a lot of people on this cast, and not everything is going to make it on the show. But yeah. All right, you want to go to Tribal? Not Tribal.
Tribal?
The challenge?
Yeah, I'm ready for the challenge. This is all you. I'm sick of this challenge.
I was going to ask you, what's the name of this challenge?
The name of this challenge is Wrist Assured. This is the third consecutive New Era season to feature this challenge. We had it in 46, 47, and now 48.
And now.
Could you tell me who won it in either of the two previous seasons? There's 3 winners across those two. Somebody won it in 46. That contestant hopped into confessional afterwards and said, before going on Survivor, I got one of those grip machines and was practicing my grip for that challenge specifically. Who was that contestant, Jack? Do you know?
Austin?
Nah, Austin wasn't even on 46. It's Charlie from 46.
Charlie!
In 47, it's Kyle and Sue that win it. What's this challenge all about, Jack? You tell us.
All right. Well, they're competing for immunity and reward. Reward being, of course, a do-it-yourself peanut butter and jelly bar, which I imagine is this lazy production. Just set out a jar of Smuckers, a jar of Jif, and a loaf of Wonder Bread and said, all right, go crazy, you fucking animals. Because when we see them eating the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches later, no one makes a sandwich. They all take giant hunks of bread and just slather the stuff on top. That's not a sandwich. Wrist assured endurance, you are holding up a bucket with 1/4 of your pre-show body weight in it. That bucket is tied to a rope, which is wrapped a few times around a handhold thing. And if you drop your bucket, you're out. The twist, and they did this last year too, is that there's 2 teams. This is not just individual immunity. It is individual immunity within the context of your team, and the team that wins votes second. So basically, if you are in the team that goes out first and you are voted out, you are the last person before the jury.
Yeah.
If you are voted out from the winning team, you are the mayor of Ponderosa. The teams are drawn at random. I hate this split. It's my biggest problem with the episode is this 2-vote split nonsense. I don't see the need for it.
You just want them to do a normal merge vote here where one person immune, everyone else is vulnerable?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. My issue with the twist is the fact that production keeps lying to us and saying, welcome to the merge, it's everyone for themselves. And then we do one regular merge vote and then go back to like a pre-merge format. I feel like the actual merge doesn't start until the final 10. And plus you have the whole side of a large part of your game can be completely decided by a random rock draw and whatever group you get set up with.
Yeah. So in that vein, the 2 teams are Star, Joe, Mitch, Chrissy, Eva, and Say on orange, and Shaheen, Kyle, Camilla, Joe, Mary, and Cedric on purple. Basically, everybody but the Meat Boys drops immediately. Cedric drops within 20 seconds. Star drops very quickly, which I was surprised by. It comes down to Eva, Joe, David, and Kyle. Eva drops. Joe is the only one left on orange, winning immunity for himself. David and Kyle go for even longer. These dudes are shredded, and David is having a great time. And basically, it comes down to Joe versus David. They set a record for this challenge. They are up there for 52 minutes holding these things. They're up there for so long that Jeff films the to be on Survivor commercial during the challenge.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. It's the only time I've enjoyed one of those. But essentially, David was so comfortable up there that it seemed he could have been up there for another hour. And Joe drops first, which means the purple team will vote second. So somebody from the list of Star, Joe, Mitch, Chrissy, Eva, and Say will be the last person out before the jury, and one of the other from the other team will be the mayor of Ponderosa.
No real question here that Joe and David were going to win this. David at points is running the challenge one-handed and leaning back and just watching the other people compete. Even though I hate that they're repeating this challenge over and over again, 3 consecutive seasons, I like that it's purely a physical challenge. I don't think every challenge needs to test a contestant's skills in a ton of different arenas. You can just test them in one particular area, and if that's what you're good at, you win the challenge. Like, let's be honest, challenges are basically luck anyway, because it comes down to what type of challenge does production pick for you, and I wish they lean more into that side of it.
I agree that we don't need every challenge to be multidimensional. Even with this challenge having been done 3 years in a row, which is obviously too many, I like this challenge. I like an endurance challenge. They just need more variations on the format, right? Change it, make it a two-handed thing where you're going out to either side, right? Change the muscles that are involved. That's all you have to do to keep it interesting. There's one I saw from Survivor Australia where they have to balance and hold a ball steady on a plate between them. The kind of thing D would have destroyed. There's a lot of fruit on this tree to keep it compelling and not just reusing the same set over and over. Do you want to talk about purple or orange?
Let's talk about the losing group. Is that orange?
That is orange.
We can talk about everything with them, including the tribal council, then go over to purple. Like Jack mentioned, this tribe has 6 people. It's 3 original Logi members, Joe, Eva, and Star. They're kind of the ones running the show. And then you have Chrissy, Mitch, and Say. Now, going into this week, the arrangements of these tribes were announced beforehand through the different ads and promos for the show. And I saw this tribe and I thought, oh, this is Star's opportunity to flip on Joe and Eva, align with the other 3, and finally break up that tight pair. That doesn't happen. Joe and Eva's names are never even brought up in the discussion.
Not once. We don't even see them for the most part.
The real decision here is, will they cut Say or will they cut Mitch? And there's reasons for both of them. Say, she's kind of the safe vote. She's positioned on the bottom. And if you vote out Say, you're not really burning anybody in the process. It's a way to kind of keep the peace amidst the merged tribe. Mitch is similar, where he doesn't have many close allies left in the game, but he is perceived as a higher level challenge threat, and he has that moving storyline. There's a couple things that really surprised me here. The first one is Chrissy, where initially she's working with Mitch. She's talking to other people about voting out Say. And then you fast forward a couple minutes, and Chrissy's changed her mind. She's now telling people that she wants to get rid of Mitch because he's this threat to win and because he seems to be spiraling a little bit as an ally. So you're the one who picked Chrissy as your winner for the season. So what do you think about Chrissy's decision here? Do you think she should stick with Mitch and vote out Say or go the other direction?
I like that she seems to have decided to have a feint here, right? She's decided to work with Say, get Say riled up against Mitch, and then flip on Say. Did she figure this out beforehand, or was this a flip and then she says it was on purpose, right? I haven't seen enough of Chrissy's gameplay to really weigh in. It's so weird that Joe and Eva don't play a role in this at all. I don't think we see a single conversation with them doing anything. So maybe it's just that Chrissy had a couple conversations and it was the most interesting thing on the island and it got the edit. I don't know, man. This was a weird one.
Yeah, it's really tough to have a read on Chrissy's game. I don't know what her long-term strategy is. I feel like last week we had snippets of Chrissy saying, I want to go Siva strong, but she's then in on the charity blind side and she's open to cutting Mitch. I'm really interested to hear Chrissy's like post-season press because I want to know, who did she think she was connected to on the island? Because the edit makes it seem like she's a complete free agent.
See, I was about to ask you who you think her best ally is at this point.
My guess, and this is all speculative, right? My guess is David. Even though we haven't seen the two of them really speak, in the pre-merge before the swap, the original alliance that was running that Siva tribe was Kyle, Camilla, David, and Chrissy. So maybe
Yeah.
Chrissy still thinks that that core four is still together. But outside that, I really have no clue. Like, I thought she was tight with Mitch because they met at the swap, but now that doesn't seem to mean much. But speaking of Mitch, I wanted to get your thoughts on his gameplay here because everybody already knows about Mitch's vote block, and he's going to be transparent with that information. He goes to Joe and he says, I'm going to block Say's vote. We'll prevent her from using the shot in the dark, and we can take her out here. Do you think this actually had an impact on Mitch's fate in the game, or do you feel like the other contestants were making their decision regardless of what Mitch was doing here?
I think what this did is it bought him a lot of goodwill going forward with Joe. This opens a door for future collaboration, and it's a high price to pay, but I don't think it did anything to decide the outcome of this vote. That's my take, is that this was valuable for him long term, but not a game changer in the short term.
I think that's a really good point because Joe is someone, he's the one beating the drum of honor and integrity more than anyone else on this cast. Outside maybe David, they're both competing for that top spot. But I feel like for Joe, if Mitch says before Tribal, I'm going to use my vote block and he actually does it, that's going to earn a lot more brownie points with someone like Joe than it would a player like Camilla or Shaheen. Want to go this first Tribal Council?
Yeah, I mean, this is where we get the ideological debate, right? Is the best way to win sticking close with your allies, or do you, at some point, you have to start flipping on them and start betraying your allies? And Chrissy talks about how she's very conscious that she will have to betray someone, but then has to immediately backpedal and say, but not today. Don't worry, everybody. It's not now, but it's coming. I think she's too vocal about her side of the argument, even though she's got good points.
I think that comment at Tribal Council will be the first domino leading to Chrissy's downfall. Now, this is partially based in the fact that Chrissy's the most invisible person left in the game, but I would not be surprised at all if next week we see that Honor and Integrity Alliance come together and say, Chrissy was kind of questioning our tactics. Maybe we need to cut her. I think that could play a role down the line for her. When it comes to that philosophy of sticking with their allies and playing a loyal game, I don't have an issue with that in the short term. Like a super common strategy in Survivor, at least today, is the meat shield strategy. You want to keep the other big physical threats around. That way, when things don't work out the way you want them to, there's other people to push in front of yourself. But my issue with David and Joe's outlook on the game is that they don't want to really use each other as shields. They don't want to have someone there to push in front if someone plays an idol. They genuinely want to go deep in the game together, and that's where I kind of take issue with it. And I also think it rubs other players the wrong way. There is a real world where someone like Joe or David plays a great strategic game, makes it to the final tribal, and blows it because they refuse to own up to their deceptive play style. Like Chrissy made it very clear at Tribal Council, she wants someone who's going to be transparent in their gameplay, not someone who's lying about the honor of their game. So that's something I'm keeping an eye out for. And I think that's another bonus for a player like Shaheen or Kyle or Camilla who would be more transparent in a jury speech.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that's very well said. I think that's a great point. Anything else here?
That's really it. Want to get to the vote?
Yeah. Mitch blocks Say's vote. It's 5 on Say.
Yeah, 5-0, every single one of them on Say. And let me just say, I was devastated. This was a true loss for the season.
Yeah.
We needed Say on the season's jury. We can extend the jury to 9 people just so I can hear what Say would yell at the contestants in the final Tribal Council. I really feel like we were robbed.
I will say having Say on the jury would be really nice. I would have greatly preferred having Say as the mayor of Ponderosa over Cedric.
This is an absurd take, so bear with me.
Okay.
I would want Say on the jury more than Cedric. But I want Cedric as the mayor of Ponderosa more than Say.
Just so that he's the face of it? Like what?
Because I think the mayor of Ponderosa, in my mind, that's kind of the life of the party. In 45, it's Caleb. Who is the mayor of Ponderosa in 46 and 47? Let me look it up real quick. You're testing my knowledge here. In 46, it's Soda. She was a pretty fun time when she was around.
Oh, yeah.
And then in 47, it's Sierra. Like, it's a lot of the younger people on the island. That way, when you get voted out, they're the ones behind the bar pouring shots, bringing everybody together. And I don't think Cedric fits that description at all. And that's why I like him as the mayor of Ponderosa. I think he's more of the chaperone of Ponderosa than the mayor.
I can see that. See, I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm not that sad to see her go from a strategic point of view because I've been kind of down on her all season, but there's going to be more heartbreak without her. That's for sure. At some point, some of these people I really, really like are going to have to turn on each other, and that's going to suck.
You want to talk about the other group now?
Yeah, so we got an animal shot. I've been waiting for this for the last 20 minutes. We have a giant oceanic manta ray that does a little swoop. Cedric's pretty clearly the target here. I thought you were going to ask for the connection, but...
Well, do you have a connection?
Yes, it's that Cedric is the manta ray.
Okay.
Because he's the biggest thing in the camera, right? He's the target. These manta rays, by the way, are huge. They can get up to 30 feet in length, 23 feet across, 6,600 pounds. They are huge, huge creatures. They are beautiful. I will have more to say about them later.
Okay.
Cedric is pretty clearly the target. David wants him gone. Mary basically calls the shot and says, I think Say and Cedric are both going to go tonight. The situation is we're going for Cedric. There's going to be a feint that it's Shaheen. We're going to tell Cedric we're going for Shaheen. Shaheen doesn't like it, and it makes Kyle think, maybe it's a good time to actually get Shaheen out. Kyle and Camilla get together, and they finally get to have a conversation because their alliance is still apparently unknown somehow.
And that's brought up every single week.
Yeah.
It's always the undercover alliance. No one has any idea that we're working together. I don't know if I fully buy it, but...
I mean, we never see anyone talking about them, right? So maybe it is really on the down low. Basically, what they want to do is start a rumor with David that Shaheen has an idol to make him the target and to make him a person of suspicion. Because they essentially think, otherwise, David's not going to turn on this guy. And they're right. I mean, he doesn't. But did you like this plan? How did you think this would work?
So at first, the edit had me fooled. It looked like they had convinced David with this idea. But since it didn't work this week, I would not be surprised at all if this plan ends up blowing up in their faces. They claim that Shaheen acquired an idol in the swap section of the game after Thomas was voted out, after Kyle used his idol at that tribal council. The problem there is that there were more people on that beach. It wasn't just Shaheen, Kyle, and Camilla. Joe was also there. Joe, the force of honor, honesty, and integrity. So when everybody comes back together next week, David will likely go to Joe and say, hey, did you hear that Shaheen got an idol after Kyle played it? And I bet Joe will fall on his sword for Shaheen and say, that's not true. I was with Shaheen. He didn't go idol hunting. He's a loyal and honest guy like me. And that's how I see the tide shifting against Kyle and Camilla, because Joe won't be able to lie in that situation.
Yeah.
So that's the only real potential fallout that I could see with this plan. But who knows? Maybe Joe hears it next week and he completely goes along with it.
I think the other facet worth considering before we go on to tribal, because I don't have anything else here, is in the next time on, we see that David's going crazy, super paranoid. And so this might have at the very least put some cracks in the alliance, right? And we see David kind of yelling at people and there's some chaos, right? There's always chaos in the next time on. But
yeah, I think last week's next time on made it seem like Camilla and Kyle were actually going to get the votes against Shaheen. And then it ended up being just one against him at tribal. So I don't buy into the next time ons too much in general.
The one 2 weeks ago had Say with a knife, and that was just her washing the dishes, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I shouldn't read much into it at all, but I like this plan. I see it falling apart, but I also see it being subtle enough to work with these non-strategic people. I see Kyle and Camilla really running the game around these people because they're not paying attention to what could happen. And if these people, this Meat Boy Alliance doesn't actually see that Kyle and Camilla are tight, it's on them.
Well, do you think Kyle and Camilla made a mistake this week in not actually pulling the trigger on Shaheen? Because once the two groups come back together, Shaheen's picking up a lot of his allies that were not in that split tribal. He'll have Joe around. He'll have Star around. He'll have Eva all around.
I don't know. I actually kind of like the destabilizing of it going further. I kind of like going into the full merge with David distrustful of his allies and with this potential rumor. This sets up for a bigger rift between Joe and David. That's good for Kyle and Camilla. And so I think there's a lot to be gained from it besides the elimination, but it's all very subtle stuff, not a big win like voting him out. So I think we'll just have to see.
And honestly, voting him out might have been too big a play for this stage of the game. This Honor Integrity Alliance just came together an episode or two ago. And if you're already cutting one of their members, then it's going to become everyone for themselves kind of fighting on the merge beach. So at least by throwing out that rumor but not making the move, you create that distrust while having at least some stability. So that way, next week, you still have the option of doing another safe vote and voting out someone like a Chrissy, like a Mitch, a player that's already on the bottom. But I do stand by my take that I said earlier, where if Camilla and Kyle are going to rally the numbers against Shaheen, they got to do it at like final 10 or final 9. And if they don't do it in either of those rounds, Shaheen's going to win the battle.
I totally do see that as a very real possibility.
Last thing I'll throw out before Tribal Council is that I'm a little bit disappointed with Camilla's post-merge game through the last 2 episodes. I feel like in the pre-merge, I saw Camilla as the dominant strategic force of that partnership. And since all of the players have came together, Camilla seems to be operating more and more as Kyle's sidekick, which is a shame. I don't think that's how Kyle perceives her, but it's difficult for me to not look at it that way when Kyle has all of these connections to the big threats of the season. And who does Camilla have other than Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I think that might just be narrative focus. We're really centered on the Meat Boys right now, and hopefully that just shifts a little bit as the field gets smaller.
It is narrative focused, but I think it also says something about the cast too. Like, if Camilla sits in the final tribal, she might not play the type of game that resonates with a lot of these big guys. People like David and Joe are going to want to vote for a winner that's loyal and good at challenges. And I think that's kind of the opposite of Camilla. She's someone that's schemy, playing under the radar without immunity. That's a playstyle that I like better, but I'm questioning if she has what it takes to really win this season, not based on her player quality, but just based on who's around her. Okay, Tribal Council. What are some highlights from this for you?
I have one, and it is that Cedric says, quote, "We've all seen the brilliant gameplay of people sitting around us. Cedric is the least consistent, least brilliant. Not that he's playing dumb, but I wouldn't call any of his moves brilliant." I just thought that was a funny thing that he said, because it was kind of like, are the brilliant moves in the room with us, Cedric? When you look in the mirror, do you see a brilliant gameplay? That, and then everybody says goodbye to the person they're about to blindside, which I thought was pretty bold.
Is this the tribal where Jeff breaks out the dance moves, or was that in the other Tribal Council?
I honestly don't remember. I remember him saying something about at Club Condo, this is my move.
Yeah, he talked about Club Condo last week.
It was the other one because Chrissy said, hey, it feels like we were dancing around and switching partners. What is that, salsa? And he's like, I just do this.
Yeah, Jeff only knows the bossa nova. But only highlight for me in this tribal was something that Shaheen says. He says that if you show any signs of panic, then that could be a sign that you're about to go home. And I think that says a lot about the alliance that he's a part of. This is a group that wants to maintain the status quo and be as stable as possible. And it feels like a lot of those people who operate as these agents of chaos are immediately getting targeted. Last week, that was Charity. This week, it's Say. So I think to align with I don't know if you listened to the podcast last week, but we have a name for this new alliance.
Okay.
I'm calling it the Milky Majority.
I like that. Was that the episode title?
I don't remember what the episode title was.
I don't know. I didn't listen.
Long story short, I think if you want to integrate yourself well with the Milky Majority, you need to be as calm, cool, and collected as possible. So we get the actual vote. Pretty straightforward here. 5 on Cedric, only 1 on Shaheen. Cedric will be the first person on the jury, and I have an epitaph. First epitaph of the season.
Boy, yeah.
I spoiled this a bit earlier. I am upset that I couldn't give one to say, but the rules of the pod is that for you to get an epitaph, you need to be on the jury and you need to be voted out before the finale. So the players who go out at 5th place and 4th place don't get an epitaph from me. It's just too much work amidst a finale episode. But Cedric's epitaph is R.I.P. Cedric, the chaperone of Ponderosa. Typically, when the contestants go to Ponderosa, they need some kind of transportation there. I think normally they roll up with some kind of like black SUV to take them.
Yeah.
I think Cedric is going to roll up in like the classic white mom van and rally up all the kids and say, come on, guys, we're going to soccer practice and then we're going to Ponderosa afterwards. And whenever Mary is voted out of the game, because I'm really doubting if she can make it to Final Tribal, she'll go to Ponderosa and Cedric will scold her once again and say, why did you and say not get along? You two should have listened to me. I think he'll have a fun time in that role, kind of serving as the parental figure, criticizing everybody once they're voted out of the game.
I like it. It's cute. Here's my called shot with Cedric, and I want to be wrong about this more than anything. His remarkable inconsistency in every vote he's ever made on this island, I fear will lead to a absolutely nonsense decision at the final tribal council. Like, we won't have a no-vote finalist because instead of breaking a tie, he will vote for Mary. It's going to be something like that, where everyone is going to go, whose vote is that? And it's going to have a little signature and say Cedric, because he's so sick of, because he's spent, 3 weeks going, whose cursive was that, right? It's been bothering him so much. That's what I fear.
Well, I don't fear it. I think that's a great thing to see. I made a TikTok video about this just today where in the history of Survivor, right, 47 seasons, 32 of them have a 3-person final tribal council format. And out of those 32, only 5 of them have final tribals where every finalist received jury votes. We've already seen one of them. It happened in China.
27 seasons have a no-vote finalist.
Yeah. So it's pretty common that you end up with a 0 vote, like non-factor in the end. But I think thanks to Cedric, the final tribal council could be a bit more interesting this season. But the last time we had a final tribal council of 3 people where all of them got votes was season 35, which came out in 2017. So it's been 8 years since we've seen that happen. I think Cedric could be breaking the streak for all of us. Cedric's out the door, first member of the jury. You ready for winners and losers? I didn't write mine down this week, so I'll be doing them on the spot.
Okay, well, I'll start then. My loser is Shaheen. We've talked about it. I see him going home. I see him being the casualty in the chaos. His name is the only one in his alliance that is being floated. Joe's not coming up. Eve is not coming up. David, after that performance, his name has not come up. No one is saying yet that we need to go after him. People are saying that with Shaheen. He's my loser. Who is your loser?
That's fair. Your loser feels a bit predictive, though. It's hinging on the fact that other people will continue that anti-Shaheen sentiment into next week's episode. I think in terms of the gameplay for this week, he did everything he could. He only got his name written down once at Tribal Council, so I'm still pro Shaheen. But my loser, after reviewing the options on the board, I'm going to go with the pick that might be a little bit out of left field. I'm going to go with Mary, which hurts because I really like Mary as a Survivor character. She's one of my favorite players on this cast, but I just don't know if there's a winning storyline for her anymore. It felt like going into the merge, Mary's big arc was, I want to take the green off of me. I want to get rid of Say, separate myself, and kind of move forward in the game. And she has done that to an extent now that Say has been voted out. But we don't know what color Mary is putting on now that the green is off. Who is Mary aligned with on this cast?
Right.
And that's what really gives me a lot of reservation with her. I just don't think she has the storyline in place to make a deep run. And I think as that milky majority starts to take control, they're going to pick off those bottom feeders, and that'll be your Mitches, your Chrissies, and your Marys. So she's my loser.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very valid take and very well said. I liked the color thing. Who's your winner?
Here, you do your winner first, and I'll cook mine up in the process.
Yeah. My winner's Camilla. It's the flip side. I think Camilla is in a really nice spot, going after Shaheen, making moves, not being at the center of the alliance. She is playing that classic Meat Boy Shield formation. I'm thrilled with it.
Well, so why Camilla over Kyle would be my question.
Because Kyle's further out in the open, and I do think, despite the edit, that Camilla has a better strategic brain. They both have very good strategic minds. I like Camilla's better from the pre-merge.
That's fair.
Part of that's bias. I think she's on my fantasy team.
She is on your fantasy team. But I do think there's something to be said there about, like, Camilla and Kyle have this target in Shaheen, but I don't think that Shaheen knows that they're going after him.
Yet.
So maybe he'll find out down the line. But the fact that he isn't even aware of this rival on the cast could be a bit of a concern.
Really, really quick. Can I just say, how am I still in fourth in our fantasy league when Carrie has 2 people eliminated? I'm the only person with my full tribe left.
Well, who are the 3?
Chrissy, Camilla, and Star.
Well, there's your answer. Chrissy and Star are probably the 2 least visible people in the game. So I think you'd almost rather have someone like Say, who goes out an episode or 2 earlier, but at least gets a bunch of screen time in the process. I'm shocked that I'm not last in the league. I'm second to last. Below me is Alexis. Alexis has Shaheen, and I have Mitch. And I feel like Shaheen's going to outperform Mitch. So I'm already anticipating my spot on the bottom. My winner of the episode, though, I'm going to give it to David. I gave David the winner last week, too, which is unlike me. I don't enjoy giving it to the meat shields over and over again.
Right.
But for David, I feel like he was the key domino this week that kept Shaheen in the game. Because if you look at that tribe, Camilla and Kyle were fully on board with that plan, and they had Cedric with them. That's 3 out of 6 votes. They just needed that 4th to make it happen, and David didn't go through with it. So I feel like David has a lot of say in that milky majority, and he's surrounding himself with people that will potentially get targeted before him. Like, he's tight with Joe and Eva, who are an obvious alliance that would get some heat before he does. And he's aligned with Shaheen, who is now having his name thrown around camp. So I feel like David might be in a good spot long term, even if I disagree with his general philosophy and outlook on the game.
I like that. I think that's fair.
Do you have an honorable mention for this week?
I do. My honorable mention is the mirror test, which is a test used to determine animal intelligence, specifically because this oceanic manta, right? Massive, massive fish, has one of the largest brains of any oceanic creature. Its brain can weigh up to 200 grams. I know that doesn't sound big, but it's 10 times larger than a whale shark's brain.
Ooh.
So, yeah. It heats the blood going to its brain. These rays can be found literally all over the world. They've been found off the coast of Egypt, Japan, New Jersey, New Zealand, Patagonia, like everywhere, as long as it's not too cold. But they heat the blood going to their brain, and they might pass the mirror test. So they may have a concept of self-awareness, which is crazy. With a land creature, right? A bird, a monkey, a dog, you can picture one of those creatures in the wild looking down into a reflection in the water of a river or whatever and recognizing themselves. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Ravens, for example, crows can recognize themselves in mirrors. The reason it's my honorable mention is and the food for thought here, what does a reflection mean to a creature that lives underwater?
Yeah, nothing that's like natural. It would be
exactly
like a piece of glass that's thrown into the ocean. Yeah.
But like a crow that's evolved and developed this brain, right? Like, imagine if you're the first giant oceanic ray to recognize yourself in a mirror and you're just floating along and you're like, oh God, what am I?
You think that these are manatees or rays? What are they?
Giant oceanic manta rays.
Okay, so you think these manta rays have like deep philosophical thoughts on the meaning of self?
I think they might. That's the key. According to Wikipedia, they might pass the test. They might have these thoughts. So,
Oh, so it's not even confirmed. This is a theoretical honorable mention.
my honorable mention is the hypothetical self-awareness of the giant oceanic manta ray.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'll give my dishonorable mention to the hypothetical non-self-awareness of the same manta ray. I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. I think they look at that piece of glass in the ocean and they don't see anything. They don't recognize what they're looking at.
Agree to disagree. That's fair. Shout out to Alexis for filling in last week. I'm out for the next couple weeks because I got to travel a bunch for work. So, bye.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Well, I'll be back next week. We'll be covering episode 8 of Survivor 48. It's a 13-episode season, so we're over halfway there at this point. And even though I'm not as optimistic for the back half of it, I think there's a chance that we get some interesting dynamics playing out. So we'll see you then.